Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of the live stream Logistics with Purpose. This is our second one and I'm super excited and happy because we have an amazing show. Adrian, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Enrique. Excited to be here. It's a beautiful day here in Atlanta and looking forward to the show ahead.
We're going to have an amazing guest today and a great company, and it's going to be very, very interesting. So how are you feeling in general, Adrian? Do you want to share any kind of positive news?
Very positive. I'm going to be, very, this is a very self-centered positive news, but I'm a workout nut and have upped the volume of exercise and frequency from January this year. And any day that I can do 5 days of vigorous exercise, which I did last week, for me, that's a positive week. So that's part and parcel of what helps to make the week positive for me.
Hey, Adrian and I worked together at Vector, and we had a chance to go down to Querétaro a couple years ago, and I had the opportunity to work out with Adrian. He clearly kicked my butt, so keep it going, Adrian, for next time. And today, again, amazing guest. He's the president, CEO, a visionary, a chemical engineer, a relentless leader. He has lived in Mexico, China, France, the Netherlands, traveled throughout the world, and he has an extensive background in medical devices, sustainability, and developing teams. Speaking of sustainability, Adrian, I think it's perfect timing for this episode.
It absolutely is. With Earth Day tomorrow, with a huge focus, draws everyone's attention to the environmental impact that we have and how necessary it is to protect the environment at all costs. And our guest today is, as Enrique says, the CEO of a company that is focused on helping others, helping the world, and delivering sustainability. And in fact, they're directly responsible for diverting 26 million pounds of medical supplies and equipment from our local landfills, which is absolutely huge. So
it's going to be exciting. It's going to be a masterclass. I look forward. And without further ado, let me introduce you all to Charles Redding, President and CEO of MedShare's. Charles, how are you doing? Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, Enrique. I'm doing well.
I cannot get used to that swooshing sound. It's just, it
sounds like the Nike commercial.
It does, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for giving us the time and opportunity of being here today. And Adrian, I think you wanted to welcome some of our guests in our live stream as well, right?
Yes, Gurav, please forgive me if I've pronounced it incorrectly. Welcome to the show, Mr. Mohib, Christy, one of our colleagues. Great to see you, Christy. And we are looking for Michelle Cole has joined us from Cincinnati. Welcome, Michelle. So we're looking for a great show. Thank you for spending some time with us.
We have someone from Monica as well, joining us from Mexico. We have people from all over the world, it seems like.
Excellent.
Claudia has just joined. Hi, Charles. Greeting from Claudia at EAL.
Nice to meet you.
Well, Charles, let's just deep dive into you. I mean, people are really excited to listen to your story. You have an amazing career, and you're leading an amazing organization here in Atlanta that's inspiring a lot of others, including Vector and myself, to give back. It's a purpose-driven organization, sustainable and responsible. So with that said, Charles, let's just start a little bit with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your upbringing, your childhood.
Yeah, I mean, it may be interesting to others. It's kind of boring to me in the middle of it. I'm originally from Atlanta, so I'm one of those kids that grew up, right in the city. Attended public school systems in the Atlanta area and went off to Georgia Tech to pursue a degree in chemical engineering, which really opened a lot of doors for me. I'll be the first to say. I think my first job out of college was as a process engineer for Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company up in Ohio. Did that for a while before joining what I consider to be one of the most outstanding companies in the world, Johnson & Johnson. Joined them and really had a 23-year run with the magnificent healthcare company, providing, engineering expertise, overall management. I worked my way up really to be a global vice president of operations And so I was managing significant supply chains as it relates to medical devices for this fantastic companies. And we did a lot of wound closure devices. But one thing that I truly enjoyed was the international experience that I was able to get. So I spent a fair amount of time starting up a facility in Mexico. That was very interesting to do wound closure projects, and then moving to my family to Shanghai, China, where I manage our Asia operations supply chain between India and China for a number of years, and then coming back and living in California, and then managing sites in France, Netherlands, Mauritius, you name it. So it's a really exciting career, and I think the question often is what brought me to MedShare, and first of all, I think in doing that, it really heightened my sensitivity to the need or the healthcare disparities around the world. And so being originally from Atlanta, when I got the opportunity to come back here and start looking for jobs, I was looking for jobs that, number one, were continue to help people stay within that healthcare industry, and MedShare, came up.
Amazing organization, right? And we'll talk a lot more about MedShare and what they do, but if you don't mind me actually backing to your early stages in your career. We have a lot of young people that are listening to us, some people that are actually just recently graduating. So tell us a little bit more about when you were finishing school. I believe that you're a chemical engineer, isn't that correct?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit more about that time and what kind of mentors did you have? What kind of support system did you have back then in Atlanta? And just tell us a little bit about your career choices at a very early stage.
Yeah, so one of the things I would encourage young people to do, just be a sponge, learn as much as you can. I was one of those, even in elementary school. I think I was attending summer school before, summer school was mandatory. At that time, it was elective and you just learn. And I can remember, starting a college curriculum when I was still in high school, just doing summer engineering research programs over at the Atlanta University Center, where I got an opportunity to do some pretty advanced biomedical research work, right? Doing research work on rat liver mitochondrial functions, testing, weak acid indicators and toxic chemicals, and proving, that lead nitrate inhibits, oxygen intake in the brain, which was a core issue for inner city kids. And so, which led to, a disparity in learning. And so, a lot of that started early on. I can remember first wanting to be a lawyer for about a minute. And then
you wanted to be a lawyer before deciding on chemistry?
Yeah.
That's a big swing.
I was influenced by some incredible teachers. My science teacher, Miss Marjorie Boland, who I love dearly. And I think she's probably 97 years old now, but it lives in Atlanta. But she put me on that path of learning and having a passion for the sciences, and had an incredible math teacher too. And so when I decided on a career, I was really looking for that combination of strong science and strong math. And, engineering certainly came up, and,
right.
Georgia Tech being one of the top schools to attend for that.
That's incredible. Do you remember some of the teachings or comments that maybe your mentor back then kind of encouraged you not only to switch from maybe lawyer for a little bit to being an engineer, and then further on that had helped you with your life? Like if you had to pick one role model or a couple of mentors that you've had throughout your life or your earlier career, who would you pick, and what have they taught you that made you such an incredibly successful individual?
Well, I mean, I've had so many, but I think there was one that said something to me, and it kind of scared me a little bit. But it was when I was taking courses over at Morehouse. I was in high school, and I was in this engineering program over there. And one of my professors was Dr. Matt Bay, and he's a very well-known. He had worked on the atomic bomb project and things like that. So this was a chemistry, very, very pioneer in the industry. And we're in this class, very impressionable. And he said to us, pick a career such that if they had a choice of eliminating people in the world, you'll be so needed that you would be in that group that they would have to keep. And I was like, oh my God, that's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure on a kid to say, pick something such that, it absolutely needed. And so, obviously the sciences and what they call now STEM
Yeah, that ruled out law, right?
Yeah, they kind of lawyers. I said, man, lawyers, boy, you can be good and bad with them. So I kind of ruled that out. But no, it was really, I think it left a lasting impression on me. And what the way I translated that is, do something, obviously something you're passionate about, but something that can make a difference and something that you can use those skills to make a difference in the world. And certainly there are many vehicles in which you can do that. But I tell you, the sciences for me was just so exciting. All the possibilities, the learnings, and trying to figure out what make things work, and then applying it somewhere else. That's great stuff for me.
Adrian, go ahead.
So just want to welcome a couple more guests who have joined us. We have really some international flavor as well this morning. We have Perna from Nepal, Ali from Turkey, Yusri from Egypt, Mervyn from Dublin. Mervyn, not sure if that's Dublin, Ohio or Dublin, Ireland. Welcome. Peter, welcome back as well. Thank you for joining us again.
Excellent.
Kelly, Mohammed. So wonderful to support this morning. Thank you. Charles, talking about mentorship throughout your illustrious career, what has been your outlook or your philosophy on you mentoring people in order to realize their full potential?
Yeah, and I do a lot of mentoring. And first of all, everybody that I've hired throughout my career, I stay connected to. I mean, I just feel that investment into them and as people, and certainly I keep up with them. But I think I learned early on, though, this differentiation between mentorships and sponsors and things in the workplace, which I found very helpful, meaning not only do you need people that can mentor you, and these would be people that maybe have a shared interest, can give you advice along the way, and allow you to make intelligent decisions. But then there are also people that can make things happen for you, right? Maybe they are 2 steps above where you are in your career. They're in the room when discussions are coming up and career choices are being made. And I remember even when I lived in China, one of my mentors at the time, who had hired me many years ago, he was pretty high up. He reported directly to the CEO of J&J, to very high up. And he said to me, what is your reentry strategy? I said, what are you talking about? He said, you over there, you're going to be out of sight, you're going to be out of mind, discussions are happening. I want to make sure that you stay relevant and you're able to come back in a meaningful way. So having people that understand the importance of those types of things, which you may not be thinking of, because typically, if you're like me, you put your head down and you just work very hard, and you don't always understand that it's more than just working very hard. But your efforts have to be recognized, and the right people have to be aware of what you're going on. So I try to do that certainly with the people that I mentor, but I'm very careful not to over-advise them. But to give them a framework for consideration,
Right.
Certainly because I'm a big proponent of learning from mistakes, to be honest with you. And some, you can't prevent them all, but you just need a good process for how do you translate that very quickly into a key learning.
Right. Funny, you mentioned mistakes. That's exactly what I was going to ask you next is do you actively encourage or provide the comfortable framework that the people you mentor feel like they can make mistakes and learn from them without getting wrapped over the knuckles for it?
Yeah, and that's the key. Learning from them. 2 keys to it. Number one, you want to make mistakes. I enjoy it, because if you're not making mistakes, you're probably not trying hard enough. But are taking enough risk, and I certainly would encourage making mistakes. But 2 things I require. Number one, learn from the mistake, and number 2, don't make the same mistakes twice. Right. So long as there are different mistakes, make them.
Right.
But I prefer not to see you make the same mistakes, because then you haven't translated. Yeah, exactly, into the key learning. Yeah.
So turning it back directly on you now, could you share with the audience a mistake that you've made in your career and what you learned out of it, from it?
Yeah, I mean, I probably had a bunch of them, but certainly, I think most of my mistakes have been as I've transitioned from the pure science of engineering and having to work more with people, right? And people aren't predictable. I think we would all. And so I think a couple come to mind. One, when I was working in Mexico, and not taking the time to fully understand the culture the way I should have. I would go down to the production floor and jump right into how things are going. Why aren't these rates up? And I get all these blank stares from the people until one of my direct reports pulled me over and said, "You may want to ask them how their family's doing. You may want to, engage in." So so I did that. I started, I would just come down and just, "How was your weekend? Tell me about your kids." They show photos. And then all of a sudden, boy, they were just automatically sharing things that I needed to know before I even asked, So I think that learning of please first get to understand the people and the culture has been something that has stuck with me. And another very similar one, I was in San Angelo, Mexico, which is literally in the middle of nowhere, next to nothing in West Texas. And I had a business unit over 600 people at the time. It was probably one of the largest in J&J. And I had 4 shifts that I would have to come up and talk to them about the business. And at that time, we were talking about, quality, making sure, our numbers are up, and competitive threats coming from Mexico and other places. If you guys don't, and I always get blank stares whenever I gave these passionate speeches. And I didn't understand why it didn't resonate with them, this vision of where we would like to take this organization. So I began to just strategically ask a few of them for feedback. And what they shared with me was things like, "Well, I don't have the right chair. Well, I don't understand why we have to play this music on the radio." And I was like, so again, translating that was that basic needs weren't being met, right? And so the mistake I was making was trying to take people on a journey without first making sure they were prepared. And so I had a very candid conversation. I had 13 supervisors at the time around the need to make sure people basic environments or basic needs are being satisfied to position them to be ready, willing, and able for change. And so, again, key learnings. And so that has stuck with me now. So I'm a big proponent of change management, highlighting the vision, but at the same time, making sure you've got well-equipped change agents that are ready to go on the journey, because if they're not, boy, you're going to spend a lot of wasted wind if they're not ready to go.
Yeah. Living in China and India as well. Obviously, there was some assimilation into the business climate and culture there as well. Any anecdotes or two from each of those countries as to how you had to change your way of thinking?
Yeah, and I think there's some people on here probably from India that would relate to this. It was interesting that the different perspective each saw of each other. And so I had to do this task of trying to get India and China to work together. And as you know anything about, they saw themselves more competitors, particularly as it related to low market and innovation and things of that nature. So I would ask my Chinese team their perspective on India, and they would say, "Well, we think they spend 90% of the time talking about stuff and 10% of the time doing." And then I would ask my Indian team, and they said the same thing. They said, "We never know what's on their mind." they spend all their time doing things and 10% explaining what they're, And so the challenge I had was really, how do I bridge these cultures? And first, I went into a deep dive of understanding the culture. But what I found that both were incredibly passionate about their culture and also the sciences and math. And so I use this strategy. I'm an Einstein fan, and so E equals MC squared, where I told them that our execution was heavily dependent on our ability to measure, collaborate, and communicate. And so with that as a platform between the two, we drove the business, and they solved the things they had in common more so than the things they had apart. And it was just great for me to get those teams together, and even having our shared meetings. We had them in Singapore, which was kind of in between the two countries, and different business meeting and set it out. But that E equals MC squared around measurements, collaboration, and communication was really key. And we look for opportunities to drive that, and just both incredibly talented teams that we were able to introduce market appropriate products, improve supply chain efficiencies, and a lot of different things just by working together and measuring the right thing. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
Couple of comments that we're getting in, like Scott, big fans of the MedShare team, loving Charles, POD. Mervin, also awesome career that Charles has there with so many transitions incredibly rich career. And yes, Charles, it's amazing how many different countries and continents and people you have touched. And we haven't even gotten to the real part of the show, which is you explaining us how you went into into MedShare and to giving back to people. But great comment from Mervin, Joy Daniel. Celia also joining us. She's been here many times before, just like Peter as well. Kelly Bardner, you have to love a leader that is truly listening to what his team needs, even if it's not what he expects to hear.
Great
Bravo,
point,
Charles.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, great point. Great point.
Great point.
Tons and tons of comments. Thank you so much for all of you giving us the comments. Keep bringing them in. I'm not going to be able to read all of them, but thank you so much. There's just so many.
Yeah.
Mervin confirmed he's from Dublin, Ireland as well. Thanks for that, Mervin.
Oh, love it.
Real international audience today.
Very international audience. And so,
Mervin,
Charles,
my dad was born in County Clare in a little village called 6 Mile Village,
really?
in fact. So, yeah,
Oh, okay.
Mervin probably knows it well. So, yeah, Azalea, welcome as well. So, the real international audience today too.
So, Charles, tell us a little bit about how you were. It sounds to me that you were raised being purpose-driven. You have been always kind of been caring for other people. You were always worried about making a positive impact in the world, and that has been a trait of you throughout your entire career, and it just comes across every time you talk about your team and the things that you're doing. So tell us a little bit more about this giving mentality that you have. I mean, how did you get it? Was it something that you saw? Was there like a eureka moment that kind of made you realize that giving back was important in your life? And then just share a little bit more about your transition towards MedShare before we deep dive into MedShare.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the desire to help others was instilled in my life very early on from my parents and watching them serve. My mother was a nurse and was always active with her church and just stayed busy. And it wasn't until one day I looked up and I saw my brother who went into the military and then he's a police officer serving, and his son was a fireman serving. And then I've got a sister who's working with other nonprofits, and my brother volunteers at this. So we said, wow, man, so it wasn't happenstance, when I see the entire family with this passion for serving, for serving others. And, little kid growing up in Atlanta, it's such a great environment, and seeing, the willingness to help others. And I think it's what drew me to Johnson & Johnson too. The fact that they had a cradle, which spoke openly about their commitment, not only to the employees and the customers and stakeholders, but also the community. I found that to be very refreshing. It was very overt in terms of our responsibility to give back to our communities. They encourage it, whether it be through an executive exchange programs. And I can remember serving on the board of organization up in Gainesville, Georgia, called Challenged Children or Challenged Child, which was mainstreaming kids with disabilities to make sure that they didn't feel left out of the process. And so it just was happening. It wasn't something that I said it just was in me, in my DNA. So no surprise when I decided to leave J&J and find another company to work with. I wanted those elements to exist, the ability to help others and make a difference, quite frankly. But I never considered that to be the purview of just nonprofits, right?
Right.
The way I was raised, you just do that from where you are, and then as I saw that there were these for-purpose, what I call them for-purpose organizations that were out there, whose entire mandate was centered around a mission, was just so refreshing, for me. And I felt that was a good transition for me as a next step. Particularly because of the supply chain. I know we'll get into it, but the supply chain aspect of companies like MedShare, which, aren't typical skill sets you find in nonprofits, right? Most of them are transaction-based, doing some type of after-school programs. But here lies a company that many of the skills and competencies that I were very successful in utilizing within J&J were very much needed in the nonprofit sector. So just a good marriage, I think, to drive continuous improvement.
No, it sounds like a perfect fit, actually, for the career that you've had and the exposure that you've had living in all those different countries, and then just coming coming to MedShare. And with that said, why don't you tell us a little bit more for everyone that's listening to us right now? And as Adrian mentioned, there's people from literally all over the world. So if you could just give us a little bit of a summary as of what MedShare is, and then tell us a little bit more about MedShare's supply chain, and we'll deep dive into MedShare's cause and purpose and sustainability, which is very interesting to everyone, I'm sure.
Sure. So, I mean, MedShare is a 501c3, nonprofit humanitarian aid organization. Our mission is to improve the quality of life of, people on our planet. And so what you should gather from that is twofold. One, we're very passionate about helping people, particularly addressing healthcare disparities around the world. We literally repurpose products that are intended to be discarded in many instances and to save lives. I mean, we are constantly looking for sources of quality medical supplies and equipment that we can repurpose to these communities that are struggling to get this quality equipment. So that's what we do. And one of the things I've tried to bring to MedShare is when I joined the company back in 2012, our mission was bridging the gap between surplus and need. So it was very, I hate to tell this group, it was very supply chain our focus. It focused a lot on how we did things. And my passion was always is the why we do it. And so really just trying to bring a lot more of that personal contact with the recipients we serve. What are their needs and how are these products that we're delivering to them addressing these healthcare needs? And so that's the evolution that we've been on, and we've translated to just shipping containers of products to now to being very programmatic. We have programs around maternal child health, around infectious disease control and prevention, which, oh, by the way, we've been very active in this COVID-19 response and delivering PPE to all these communities, both here in the U.S. and abroad. We do a lot around disaster relief, which, again, you can do a whole study on supply chain management as it relates to disaster relief. And one thing I'm really big on, because this is around sustainability, is we offer this biomed engineering training and support, which we help with the installation of the equipment. But more importantly, I think we train them on how to use it, repair it, maintain it, keep it going. We hear statistics about 70% of the equipment, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa, going unused because they either don't know how to repair it, they lack spare parts, they lack manuals. So we address that need as well. And because we really truly believe our job is not just to give fish, but we really want to teach communities how to fish and sustain without us. And so a lot of our work is driving that long-term sustainability by, partnering with these communities to help them solve the issues that they are faced with.
Adrian?
Just a couple of, there's a question come in from Claudia. How has e-commerce impacted your supply of donated products? Charles, if you could field that for us.
Yeah, I mean, so let me talk a little bit about our sources of supply. Maybe that'll help answer the question. So typically we get surplus products from hospitals, and this come by way of new product introductions. It could be when you're doing a surgery, you take out more than you need for the surgery, but you've already billed the patients, and so you can't put it back in the supply cabinet. So we get a lot of that, and so we partner with hospitals on, and I don't consider it as waste of the hospitals, but we partner with them on providing opportunities to save other lives, right, beyond the sphere. So we do a lot of work with that. We also get products. We have a lot of relationship with direct manufacturers. So with a lot of the companies like the Halyard Health, the J&Js, and companies that are manufacturing these products that go to distributors, that go to hospitals. In some cases, they manufacture to donate for us, which has been fantastic, particularly as it relates to some of our disaster relief. But also they have manufactured overruns. They have same situation once they introduce a new product. The hospitals no longer want the old. So we're able to, there could be a regulatory change that leads to excess. So we get a lot of that. And then we have the individuals that come by and drop, various things off. So e-commerce from that standpoint really hasn't, except for we see the introduction of new players that are getting involved, the Amazons, even some of the drugstores, the Walgreens, CVS's are getting in there. We see eBay out there with medical supplies and products. So I think the one thing that it competes with us to a little extent, if people think they can find They can sell things rather than donate. But so far, so good. And we really want to make sure our model wasn't set up based on hospitals being inefficient. So we really tried to drive those corporate partnerships. And I would say 65% of the products we get donated today come direct from manufacturers or distributors. So not even from the excess from hospitals.
Right. Thanks, Charles. Great explanation. Claudia, I hope that helped. Something I'd just like to bring up, Azalea made a great point earlier in the chat. She's pursuing her MBA. She's an engineer, and she said she feels there's a real lack of a focus of a curriculum around at college around leadership and communication. And she mentioned it in engineering. And then another guest of ours, Peter, said that in fact that's across all fields of study, he feels. And so I just want to turn that over to you as to what your thoughts are about that, and how important you feel that is.
No, I think it's incredibly important. And but I would say this. I know at Johnson & Johnson we had sort of a leadership institute, and so we developed what we call standards of leadership and did a lot of training around leadership because we saw that coming in, that lack of, because it's not something that's intuitive or that you learn while you're in college. You spend all your time focusing on the core of your degree. I think one thing too, schools like Georgia Tech, if I can push Tech, I remember when I started there, one of the first freshman seminars, they said to us, we're going to make sure you can talk to your neighbor on the left and your neighbor on the right.
Right.
That was a key component. And so yep, we're going to take electives. You're going to take stuff that has nothing to do with engineering. Yep, you're going to be great communicators. Yep, you're going to make sure you can lead because you're going to have lab groups. You're going to have leaders and things. So I think there are schools that understand the need, for that. But more importantly, I think there's a lot of companies that spend a lot of time on just instilling leadership. And there's a debate on whether leaders are born or learned. Regardless of that, I think there are skill sets that can be obtained, with the proper training. And certainly for those that are engineers, the knock on engineers always, they aren't great communicators. They don't have great interpersonal skills, put them in a lab. And so I sort of broke that mold, as you can tell,
Right.
which is why, in my career early on, I sort of switched from straight engineering over to management because I was able to demonstrate those key skills and competencies, particularly as related to people. Yeah. So I think if they recognize that and couple with a good, sound engineering background, boy, you can really go far, because it's not enough to just lead a business, but to know the ins and outs of how the business runs. Boy, that's a great combination.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Charles. And great point, Zalia and Peter. Thanks for your input there. Charles, great big broad question for you now. What is MedShare's current plans? And what are your future plans? And as an aside to that as well, are there regions in the world that you haven't covered yet, and you plan to, or regions that you're in but you feel you're not as strong as you'd like to be?
Yeah, probably yes to all of them. Right now, MedShare, we've touched over 100 different countries, in the world. So it's probably about 200 countries in the world. So yeah, so it's probably 100 others that we don't. But our focus is primarily in those countries where the need is. And so a lot of our work tends to migrate toward Africa, particularly sub-Saharan Africa. I would say the Caribbean basin, Central South America in some cases. So we're not one to do a lot of work in Europe or, the US, but we do some things. So there's always opportunities for us. And one of our key metrics, and one that I wanted to really stress for MedShare, we measure the number of people served. We feel that's a good indicator of the reach of our organization. And so we serve anywhere, we've gone between, 1 to 2, we serve on average about 2 million people a year, which sounds on the surface like a great number, but I just took the board through a visionary exercise where we took a look at our strategic plan, confirmed it, but I wanted to paint the vision of, 5 and 25. I wanted to position the organization to be able to serve 5 million people or more by the year 2025. Right. And so that's going to fundamentally change a lot of our strategic imperative, which we have 3. One is we want to drive greater recipient impact. So we're doing a lot of work to make sure the work we're doing is impactful for the recipient, not impactful for MedShare, but it has to be meaningful, addressing the needs of our recipients. Our second one is around, I want to grow, but I want to do it in a capital efficient way. So I introduced this capital efficient growth, meaning that it's not about planting MedShare flags, open up more warehouses, getting the organization understanding it's about inventory turns, right? We want to get that inventory in, get it out, get it to the people need. I hate the word warehouse. I love the word distribution center, right? So I don't want to just warehouse things and have them sitting there and not. But so we want to grow, but again, I want to do it in a capital efficient way. So we're going to have more partnerships around delivering product, getting product in and getting out. And then the third one was more of an internal. I wanted to drive and introduce the notion around organizational excellence. And really create an environment to work as one MedShare. Right now, I have 3 regions in which I have a Western region, Northeast, and Southeast where we have warehouses. But that's not how I want to measure our growth. Our growth want to be is, how many regions of the world are we touching with these life-saving products that we're introducing. So just getting the organization around that. So I'm inspired. I'm very excited about what that's going to mean in terms of increased fundraising, increased partnerships, products, and ultimately serving more people and improving health outcomes for a lot of marginalized communities around the world, including here in the U.S. We do a lot of work with safety net clinics, which serve uninsured, underinsured individuals, and we provide support to them as well.
Fantastic. Great. Wonderful. Very ambitious plans, and I know you'll get there. Enrique, any comments you want to run through?
Well, yes. Let me, again, it's been super hectic, Charles, because I've been trying to read the comments and they're just pouring in. And you're really engaging a lot of people out there, and it's around the world. So I'm trying to do my best for the audience to filter some of the questions and comments. But Kelly Bardner, I think it's a critical point that MedShare was not built on the assumption that hospitals will always be inefficient. Having multiple sources of supply that allow you to cheer for the other players in the supply chain is critical.
That's great. That's great.
Claudia has another question, really good question. Charles, question: what role do transportation partners play in your ability to meet your mission?
Well, great. I mean, companies like Vector, certainly part of our mission is we have a lot of transportation partners that, UPS, being one, Flexport. So we depend on, number one, so we'll talk a little bit about our model, but we provide sort of an end-to-end solution for our recipients, meaning we take care of all of the transportation. So we have a series of freight forwarders that, we work with, and logistics companies that keep up with a lot of the requirements around the world. And we've been really fortunate to have some great partners that have, they provide intelligence for us. They have provided gift-in-kind shipping, every year that we don't have to pay for. They have partnered with us on delivery of, just-in-time supplies, particularly in the disaster relief. I can't tell you the number of times that we've reached out to some of our shipping partners to help us fly things in to a country that need it right away, as opposed to putting it on a container. So it's critical. And transportation, Randy, my COO, and we sit down and talk all the time about, who are the lists of our key transportation partners and how we staying connected, how we try to diversify it too as well. We try to mix it up so we don't have all of our eggs and certainly in one basket. But Missionary Expeditors is another one who does a lot of work in the humanitarian aid space. But it's really based on capabilities to get into a lot of the countries that we want to get into. And we find there are various differences. Some can and some cannot, depending on where. The thing about our work is that we don't go to easy places.
Right.
Usually where there's poverty, those are pretty difficult places to get into. So having key transportation partners. Yeah, exactly. So it's not shipping it down to Florida. One could wish. So typically we want the product, the expertise of our partners to come forth and help us with our deliveries. Yeah.
Great point. Christy Porter brings up a great topic. She would love to hear a little bit more about supply chain and disaster relief. I know you guys are big and you do all that. Could you tell us a little bit more about just specifically disaster relief and how do you kind of react to emergencies like the ones we've seen so many times?
Yeah, we've really changed in that. I mean, we used to be or try to be responsive, and I wanted us to be a little bit more predictive. And so we created a disaster relief program. So we are actively looking for partners that we allow us to pre-position products before disasters occur. Also, the fundraise before disasters occur, so we can respond in a quicker manner. And so we have a lot of partners. So one of the reasons we were able to respond, we ship. I think we distribute over 4.8 million units of PPE during this COVID-19, which is incredible. And I would say we sent the first 2 to 3 million directly into China when it was a big issue at the time, and then and evolved. And the reason we were able to do that is because we had it on hand, because we already had partners for disaster relief. And we know that these are the products that are needed across all disasters. A lot of times it's the PPE type products. So we were sitting there with a sufficient inventory that allowed us to. So we really, so this notion of disaster preparedness is something that we're trying to embrace and talk to our partners about. We had transportation partners already identified that we could work with in the event of disasters. We had product suppliers that allowed us to reach out to them in the time of the disaster. So when I think of supply chain, I remember when I was at J&J, we used to divide it into 4 buckets. We used to talk about it in terms of planning, sourcing, make, and deliver. Okay, so think about that: plan, source, make, deliver. That was how we broke down a supply chain, and I've done the same thing at MedShare. We look at the planning, understanding. We have a pretty good intel in terms of, types of disasters, when they occur, what's needed. Sourcing, we want to have a great number of suppliers already identified, transportation partners, GIK partners, and a good protocol around how we would respond. So we develop a lot of that. The make for us really comes around the volunteers and our inventory and making sure we had, these types of products in place. And then certainly the distribute spoke to our distribution network with our partners and getting it out there. So that's our philosophy. But I think what I want to leave you with is it's not enough to just be after the fact. You got to plan ahead. And because a lot of our MedShare, we're not first responders, so we find most of our work occurs during what we call the recover, rebuild phase. That when we go in there, they're trying to rebuild that health system that has been devastated by disaster and things like that. We found that we're much more impactful during that phase than first responders. Now, during the first responders phase, we equip what we call these medical mission teams, and these are usually medical teams that are being expanded to these areas, and we equip them, with some key medical supplies so they can go there and render help. So
Charles,
that answers your question. We put a lot of thought into it.
No, it sounds that I'm pretty sure you did, and it sounds like you actually are incredibly busy helping others, and what MedShare is doing is incredible. It's inspiring, and we thank you for really leading by the example. Another question that I had in terms of as we kind of wrap up the show, and again, the comments and questions keep coming, and we could probably be here for at least another 2-3 hours, and we'll probably have to reschedule another one. And
why not? Let's do it again.
It's been fun, so I would love to actually do it again. And thank you for sharing all your story. One thing that you would like to challenge our audience on, I mean, as we close the program, what would be one thing that you would like to challenge the audience and maybe inspire them to do?
Yeah, it's the same challenge I just issued to my board and to the staff too. I think fundamentally we've got to change our mindset and not consider organizations like MedShare's charities, and begin to think more around philanthropy. And the key difference being, charities often responds to some issue and they try to give things to address it at the time. That's noble. It helps. But I think when you talk about philanthropy, you have more of a partnership and understanding of ongoing needs. You begin to fundamentally get at the causes of these issues. What is causing, fragile health system? What is causing? And so you have ongoing programs that you can support continuously and make sure you understand need, and then, align programs with donors to address that need. I think that fundamental shift in how or nonprofits and look at something we all have to just change. These are incredible organizations out there doing incredible work, but we want to make sure it's sustainable and not just continue to put Band-Aids. And then the same thing that caused the laceration is still there. Let's attract those things that led to the laceration to begin with. And so we encourage everyone, if you can help us and not just MedShare, there's a lot of incredible companies similar to MedShare trying to do this work. Be a part of the community, help out in any way you can, volunteer, donate your money, your time, your treasure. Time, talent, and treasure is what we always talk about. Right. So just get involved.
Joshua, so insightful, Charles Redding, predictive disaster relief as opposed to reactive. Well done, sir. A lot of congratulatory emails and texts coming in. So definitely well done. Kelly, interesting, reflecting on the difference between charity and philanthropy. That deserves a pause for thought, for sure. Christy, excellent point about charity, this philanthropy. Charles, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for giving us a little bit of your time today. And before we let you go, where can our audience contact you, contact MedShare? What can they do? Because it feels like everyone's inspired and maybe it could be a good time for them to go ahead and act, participate, and be involved as you suggested that we should do.
Yeah, so first of all, thanks everyone for participating. Your questions were rich, great. I enjoyed it. You can find out more about MedShare. Our website is www.medshare.org. That's MEDSHARE.org. There's a lot more information about our organization, the programs we have. So do that. If you're near one of our facilities in Atlanta, San Francisco, California, or in the New York, Secaucus, New Jersey area, come out, volunteer at one of our sites. You can come see one of our warehouses, meet our staff, and learn more about this great movement that we're on. And it's truly a movement. And we don't look at it as just a sedentary act of kindness. This is something we're trying to philosophically change in our world. And that's to address this gap in healthcare disparities and make sure everybody feels like they are deserving.
You have a lot of supporters and absolutely very powerful words. And just for everyone that's listening that actually has the opportunity to go and visit MedShare and volunteer for them, we did that as Vector and before the pandemic, and we'll do it again. And it was a great team bonding exercise too, right? So it's not only you're not only helping people, you're not only actually packaging all this amazing things that are going to save lives, but at the same time, you're actually doing something for the team, and it was a great event. So I will strongly recommend it. If there's any companies out there in Atlanta or San Francisco or wherever else, MedShare is participating actively and has a warehouse. Just use it as a good excuse to hang out with your
excuse to do something good.
It's a good excuse to do something different, get out of the office, help someone, and just do it as a team bonding.
There's a wonderful Mexican restaurant pretty close to you as well.
That's true. What was the name of that, Adrian?
I don't know, but it was incredible. It's a little hole in the wall, but man, it was.
Do you know what we're talking about, Charles?
I don't.
We will have to find that out and then go together.
I work in Mexico too, so I'm very discerning with my Mexican food as well.
I'm Mexican, so
we need to talk. So you know what I mean, though, right?
We will find out and let you know where that place is because it's amazing.
I'm a taco tote kind of guy, down in Juarez, Mexico. So
before the show, we got to go back and maybe do another one just on food because I know
we can do that.
We love food as well. But thank you so much, Charles, for being with us today. Thank you very much for the audience. And again, we'll schedule something in the future to see how you guys are doing. And thank you once again for what you do.
Right. Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Adrian, that was fun. That was incredible.
That was great. Hey?
So many things, tons of notes and comments, as Scott Luton would say, 17 pages worth of notes. It was a great interview. I enjoyed talking to Charles. He runs a tight ship at MedShare.
Yeah, it's good, man. It's good. He's nice. I like him. Yeah, it's a good organization. No, I think the flow is great. I like the format, man. It's nice.
Yeah, no, good question. So, and Adrian, before we close it to our audience, is there what was your favorite part? If you actually had to pick one of the things that Charles mentioned today, which one would you live with?
I think the how he empowers his staff. I think the collaboration, what he's learned from all his overseas experience on managing teams, and you know, getting the best out of people and working together as a united force. I think is really refreshing to hear that. I also love the format and that our guests that joined us. First of all, thank you to everyone for joining us. But it was great to see all the interaction between the guests. They were commenting on each other's posts and chipping in. So I think that was wonderful to see that happening.
I agree. It sounds like it's a good community, right? I mean, you see Peter coming, and Asalia has been with us for a couple of shows, and it's great to see that kind of camaraderie forming, and hopefully we can all kind of funnel some of that into giving back, making this a positive world, and helping organizations like MedShare. Once again, for everyone that listened to us today, it's a pleasure being here. And if you enjoyed this conversation with Charles Redding and MedShare, just feel free to join us at supplychainnow.com. You can visit our website. You can sign up for the podcast wherever you get your podcast from, and you can also visit our YouTube channel. Once again, this has been another incredible episode of Logistics with Purpose. Thanks to Charles, thanks to MedShare, and Adrian, thanks to you too. It was fun.
I really enjoyed it. Thanks, Enrique. Great to be a part of this. Thanks for everyone for joining us. Been a pleasure.
See you guys. Have a good Wednesday.
Take care now. See you again soon. Bye-bye.